I'll try and do a bit more today. Let's see. It's not a very difficult poem, but there are a few things which I want to draw your attention to. Now, the first paragraph, I'll just quickly read it again. The tarpaulin flaps are buttoned down on the windows of the state transport bus all the way up to Jejuri. Now, look at this. Um, this is There are two things which are very obvious here. Firstly, the tarpaulin is buttoned down. It's not fixed into the body of the bus, like it's not part of the bus. Rather, it has been pages and screws have been used to tighten up, the tarpaulin over the bus. And that means that if you remove the pages, that thing can be removed. It's like something that can be removed very easily. It's not something which is attached to the body of the bus in a permanent way. And secondly, he uses the word all the way up to Jejuri. Now that's like it is the bus in which they are traveling, and all the way they have to travel to Jejuri in this bus only, with bare minimum of comfort. And when you use the word buttoned up, it almost, it's as if he's describing some child who's made to wear a coat, and the coat is like buttoned up till, down up till the knees. So it's like, all the way down to Jejuri. That is the idea that comes to your mind when you read these lines. So the tarpaulin flap is buttoned down up till the windows of that bus. So the visibility again becomes obstructed because of this non-transparent material that has been used to cover the bus stop as well as the windows. Then he says, a cold wind keeps whipping and slapping a corner of tarpaulin at your elbow. So, again, the idea which has been conveyed in the first paragraph is continued in the second paragraph. There are two things again that we come to know in these lines. That firstly, we come to know that the weather is pretty cold because it is night time, so obviously it's cooler than the daytime, and maybe it is winters. So the wind is kind of, it's at a speed, because when you are in a moving vehicle, then at that time, even if it's not the wind that is actually blowing, but because you are moving with speed, you feel as if the wind is whipping against the vehicle that you are driving, or the vehicle that is carrying you. So first is this, and second is he says that the corner of the tarpaulin is hitting at your elbow. Again, the imagery that was there in the first part, that is being repeated here, because the tarpaulin is actually not fixed. It's not through and through fixed onto the body of the bus. Rather, it has been, some parts have been, maybe intermittently with certain gaps, the tarpaulin has been attached by using screws, and attached by using pages. So that is what he says. So there is some loose fabric that moves with the wind, and it hits at your elbow, because usually what do people do? They sit with their elbows on the window panes. So that very ordinary simple happening is being described here. Then he says, you look down at the roaring road. You search for the signs of daybreak in what little light spills out of bus. Again, see the language used. Here in the first line, roaring road. Here you have an example of two poetic devices being used. One is alliteration and the other is transferred epithet. I have explained this to you earlier also when I was teaching poems. I think Wordsworth's poems, when I was doing, I had taught you these two ideas. Roaring road, there's a repetition of RR sound, okay? So alliteration, roaring road, r, that is the sound, there's a repetition of the sound. And roaring road, transferred epithet also. Why? Because the road is not roaring. Please mind it, that the road is not roaring, but the poet says roaring road because it is the sound of the bus. The roaring sound, that loud noise of the bus is what is being mentioned here. But it seems as if the road is roaring. That is how it appears to the tourist. That is how it appears to the poet. So he says it's almost as if the bus is running on a roaring road. So it's not the road that is roaring, it is the bus that is roaring. Hence, this is an example of a transferred epithet. You look down to the roaring road, you search for the signs of daybreak in what little light spills out of bus. So, because it is night time, there is very little light that is visible, and because it's a long journey, so people are, kind of the now this is a common description of a tourist who's eager for the journey to get over, and there is, they're eagerly waiting that the sun should come up, because yeah, whether you're traveling in a train or whether you're traveling in a bus, if it is the night time, then nothing is visible outside, and you cannot see anything. It's totally dark. Whether there are fields outside or whether there are mountains or whether there's a forest, nothing is visible during the night time. So you wait that there should be daybreak so that you can, see as to in what kind of area you're traveling, where you're going. So then he says, your own divided face in the pair of glasses on an old man's nose is all the countryside you get to see. Now, this is slightly humorous because Arun Kolatkar does, at certain points, some humor is very much perceptible. And here he says, your own divided face. Now, because it is dark outside, nothing is visible, the windows are closed, and you cannot see anything, no greenery, no passing by villages, or no maybe a running stream or whatever the countryside looks like, but you cannot see anything. So all that you can see is your own reflection. Apparently that bus is not vacant. It's not that only you are traveling. It's a big bus, there must be more passengers, and perhaps there is one old man sitting across you. Now, this is again a very general description that the poet gives, and he says that the countryside that you get to see is your own reflection. Maybe there's an old man sitting across you, he's wearing a pair of glasses, he's wearing a pair of spectacles, and on that glass you can see your own reflection. Again, this is a very common happening. Usually you can see your own reflection in other people's spectacles, and here this is what the poet is referring to, and he says that this is the limited countryside. Now your own face is being compared to a countryside, because there is another common saying that you can make out what a person is thinking through the look on his face, or you can judge a person's inner being by looking at his face. So the face also has a kind of topography, the face also has a kind of story to tell, and the face also has a certain look which can convey so many different meanings. So here the poet says that it's your own face that you can look at to pass your time. It's your own face which is the only countryside, the only greenery, the only forest, the only hill, the only stream that you can see. So it's just being, very lightly, Arun Kolatkar says these words. And then he goes on to say, you seem to move continually forward. Now, who's moving continually forward? Again, there are two meanings in this word. Firstly is because the bus is moving, so it's an onward journey. So you can feel that. You cannot actually see anything outside, but you can feel that the bus is moving, so you know that you're going forward. Another meaning is because your reflection is moving, that reflection on the old man's spectacles, that is moving, the old man is moving along with the bus, so it's an onward journey. You are seeing yourself move forward as reflection in the spectacles of that old man. So you seem to move continually forward toward a destination just beyond the caste mark beyond his eyebrows. Now this is very significant because what destination is the poet mentioning here? There are two destinations. First is the actual destination, that is the temple where all these people are headed, and the other destination is reflected by the third line. I'll read it again. Just beyond the caste mark, beyond his eyebrows. So his eyebrows, maybe he's wearing a red vermilion mark on his forehead, and the kind of mark that you wear on your forehead, जिसको कई बार चंदन और लाल रोली का जो मार्क होता है वो यूजुअली पंडित लोग लगाते हैं, ठीक है. सो थ्रू दैट मार्क यू कैन मेक आउट द कास्ट ऑफ दिस ओल्ड मैन, एंड योर डेस्टिनेशन इज बियॉन्ड, just the caste, or just this journey. You have to go beyond that, and maybe even that temple is not your destination. Maybe your destination is even further. You are there to discover yourself, and this is just a means of reaching your ultimate destination. Then, outside the sun has risen quietly. It aims through an eyelet in the tarpaulin. Again, a very basic description. Apparently, the sun has risen, and because, as I have mentioned earlier, this tarpaulin has been kind of, screwed onto the bus. So maybe there are certain slight, there are gaps, and through that gap, the light comes in, the sunlight comes in, and it comes at a particular angle, because there's just a small opening, just a small eyelet through which the light comes in, and it seems to shoot at the old man's glasses. Why shoot? Now, shoot is again an imagery of, like, for example, a bullet that comes out of a gun. So here he says that it shoots at the old man's glasses because the rays of the sun are moving straight onto the glasses of the old man, and it seems just a little bit of light, it flares up, and the glasses become lighted up. A sword of sunbeam comes to rest gently against the driver's right temple. So, a sword of sunbeam, now it's almost like the sun is, there's a personification of the sun as if part of the sun has been cut off. Sword off, why sword off? Because again, the windows are covered, they are, they are not allowing the sunlight to come in fully. So apparently a part of sunlight has been cut off, and that is resting on the driver's temple, on the driver's right temple. Look at the exact description that the poet is giving. Against the driver's right temple, matlab jo forehead ka right side hai, right temple, and the bus seems to change direction. Now again, this is very interesting. How does the bus seem to change direction? Because the movement of the sunlight changes. अक्सर क्या होता है, जब बस मूव होती है तो लाइट का डायरेक्शन, वो जो सनरेज अंदर आ रहे हैं वो भी स्लैंट हो जाते हैं, वो भी टेढ़े हो जाते हैं, वो भी मुड़ते हैं. सो एक मूवमेंट जो है वो परसीव आप करते हो थ्रू द मूवमेंट ऑफ द सनलाइट, थ्रू द मूवमेंट ऑफ द सन रेज. सो ही सेज दैट अलॉन्ग विद दैट movement of the sunbeam, the tourist, or you can say the poet, realizes that the bus has changed its direction. It has moved to either right or left. At the end of the bumpy ride, with your own face on either side when you get off the bus. And finally, the journey comes to an end. And again, a very funny kind of a description the poet is giving here, because the ride has been quite bumpy. The road is also not very smooth. And again, even the, what do you say, the journey has not been very comfortable. It has been quite rough, and you have just your own face to look at, which is being reflected in the old man's spectacles. And he says, finally the journey comes to an end with your own face on either side. Now, why either side? Because spectacles, you have two sides of the spectacle, one on the right side, one on the left side, so you can see two faces reflected. Or maybe you can see half of your face on either side of that old man, on reflected on his spectacles. And when you get off the bus, finally, the journey also comes to an end, and your reflection on the spectacles also come to an end. And that signifies the end of your journey. You don't step inside the old man's head. Now, this is again, the ending is again very humorous, because you are stepping off. One, the meaning is that you get off the bus, you should be careful, or you carefully get off the bus so as to not step onto other people's feet, right? And here it is like something, not only about the physical description that the poet is giving, but he is also saying that you don't step inside the old man's head. The inner meaning of this is that you don't get to understand or to perceive what the old man is all about, because usually there is a dichotomy. I mean, there is a kind of break, or you can say there is a kind of separation between the younger generation from the older generation. This is what the poet is trying to, hint here, that the younger people do not have the patience to listen to what the old people have to share. Now, just like for example, a small example, you like your grandparents, they have a very different kind of an experience. Their life has been very different, and when they sit down to share about their times, sometimes the young people don't have the time, they don't have the patience to listen to the stories of the old people. This is what the poet is trying to hint at here. And he says it very in a very humorous, like tongue in cheek kind of an attitude. He says, you don't step inside the old man's head. Like literally it would mean that you are stepping onto his head, because when you are getting off, maybe your reflection is, moving along with your movement, and when you're stepping off the bus, maybe that is also reflected in the spectacles of that old man. But that is one meaning. The other meaning is that you do not understand what the old man has to share, or what the old man's experiences are, or it can mean the difference of perceptions that exist between the young people and the old people. So you can see that it's like basically it's like a visitor's travel experience that has been talked about in this poem. And inside the simple theme, the poet has woven the themes of religion, about the difference in religious faiths, and about the difference between the old and young, or you can say the difference of opinions, difference of perception between the older generation and the modern generation. That is being hinted at towards the end of the poem. And then the setting of the poem, you can see, is again the bus itself. And the whole poem is set on the bus, along with various screenshots of images at different times of the journey, how it began, how things are not visible, how it is dark outside, how the reflection of the young man is seen in the spectacles of the old man, the light, the sunbeam reflected on the driver's neck, how the movement, the change in the movement of the bus is perceived through the change in the angle of the sunbeam. All these things are kind of short descriptions of the journey. Then the speaker is addressing some visitor. The speaker can be the poet also, and the speaker can also be one visitor who's talking to another visitor who's on the way to the temple. So this can be a conversation between maybe two fellow passengers. It can be a conversation, or maybe it is the poet talking and addressing the traveler. So whether the speaker is present in the bus or not, this is also not very clear. It can be either that the person who's speaking is a co-passenger, or it can be the poet, or it can be somebody who is just observing and talking about a bus journey. And in conclusion, I would say that the poem's very loosely set structure and the choice of very, very simple language help to deal with one of, you can say, a major theme, that is the journey of India. And the tone of the poem is very conversational. It can be, it's like, you're going through any common, I mean, this description that the poet has given can be applied on to any journey that you could take to any pilgrimage site. And this would be the description. If you're traveling at night, and if you're traveling by an ordinary transport bus, this is the kind of experience that you would have. So the tone is conversational, the language used is very simple, the structure is very loose, and the ideas conveyed are nothing difficult. And also there is a hint of humor, which is very much obvious, which is there towards the second half of the poem. So this is the conclusion of the poem. I shall once again get back to you with the assignment, and go through the questions, read the text, and I would just say that this poem is not very difficult. I hope you'll be able to answer all the questions that I'll be sharing with you very soon. So till the next poem, take care, stay safe, and wishing all of you a very happy Republic Day. Bye bye.